Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today we're going to look at my brand new pistachio trees and see if we need to prune them and how we are going to prune them if we decide to prune them. Now, I am completely new with pistachio trees. Pistachio trees aren't something that are usually grown in the state of Utah, but I will link a video up at the top of when I got these seedlings last year, how I got them, and where they came from. Now, they were new seedlings last year, grown by a friend that gifted them to me. And he had gotten the seeds from trees that were planted at a Utah State University campus, I think it was like 30 years ago, by some Iranian students. And those trees have flourished since then in that area. Now, I am trying them on my property with the full realization that they may or may not grow. Now, it looks like they did survive the winter, and I've done some research. Luckily, pistachio trees are grown widely, and there's a lot of information on how they grow, how they fruit, which area of the tree that the fruit develops on, and how to prune them for orchard purposes. Now, I'm not growing them for production. Well, obviously I'm growing them for production, but not orchard production. So let's take some of the lessons I learned from that video and let's go look at my pistachio trees and see if we're going to be able to prune them this year. So here is my first pistachio tree. It's in my front yard, and this one is the one that got the most growth on it. It's quite healthy. Let's look and see if we can see any of the little buds and see how healthy they look. Now, right through here, it still feels really flexible. Looks like, I don't know if you can see those, it looks like we have some healthy buds on it. And it grew from a flare out really close to the base. Now, the pistachios that I've seen, the pictures that I've seen for the pistachios on the USU campus show this as a low-growing shrub. The videos that I watched for orchardists that grow pistachios grow them in a tree shape. So it looks like it can do either one, and I've got to decide exactly how I want this one to grow and what I want it to look like. Now, let's first look at the space that I have. So I have an aronia bush. Those are easy to replace. So if I decide to do it in a bush form and it grows too big, then I can definitely replace or move the aronia. We've got another hydrangea paniculata right here, which I am not sure how well this one survived the winter. There's death. That looks like there might be a little bit of life in there. So we're just going to wait and see how this one looks. See if it buds out anymore, see if it survives. But this one can also be moved if it gets too big. We've got the neighbor's yard right here that I'm standing in. I guess I better get out of their yard and be polite. But there's not a lot of room here. And so any way that I grow it, I'm going to be shearing the side like I do on my 9-bark. So it's not encroaching in their grass. I don't want to be a rude neighbor. I've also got to think about if I get lucky and get nuts, do we want the nuts dropping in their yard? So, after looking at it, actually earlier this fall, I decided that I needed to make some sort of decision. If I'm going to grow it as a tree with a trunk on it, I needed to stake up one of the branches and choose that as the main trunk. So I did choose the middle one down there as the main trunk and staked it up. Now let me go over a little bit about what I learned about pistachios online and how they grow. It sounds like pistachios have really strong apical dominance. That means they like to continue growing from the tips. The fruiting wood is 1-year-old wood, so whatever wood formed last year will be the ones that will grow the fruits this year. And if you don't prune it properly, the fruits will continue to grow out further and further from the trunk until they're weighted down too much, and they might break. So it sounds a tiny bit like peach trees. The other thing they said that you have to be careful of is that it's very difficult to get the trunk to thicken if you don't prune the tips of the plant off. So if I'm going to prune this to be a tree with a trunk, I'm going to need to tip it at the height that I want it and start slowly removing the lower branches. Now, I don't want to remove all the lower branches at the same time because it's the energy that the leaves collect on those branches that help develop a strong trunk. So after thinking about it, I think I want to prune this pistachio tree as a tree with a trunk and not have it be in the bush form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over there, I'm going to tip the top part, I'm going to tip the top of the trunk that I've already staked up, have that be the main trunk, tip it at, right at the growth point so that we can start developing low branches so that those can be our main scaffolding branches, and slowly start removing the lower branches. I think I may remove 1 or 2 this year and then see how it goes, and then remove the next one next year. So let's go over there and one more time look at it, and I'll show you the pruning cuts that I'm going to make. Now, as I look at this, I'm going to see if there's any dead on the tip here. And it looks like the tip is dead. So I want to prune this to a point where there's no more dead wood. So let me cut this. There's dead wood there and live wood down there. So I'm going to move my tie down. So I've tied that loosely, so as it expands, it's not going to strangle it. And then as it, once this hardens off, probably by the end of this year, I'm going to remove the ties on it. You shouldn't keep ties on a tree for more than 6 months to a year. But I want this to be nice and straight in an upright position. So now I'm going to choose which ones of the branches, the lower branches, I'm going to remove. And then I'll shorten the rest of them, the ones that I don't remove. So since there's 4 of them, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to remove 2. And I think I'll remove the 2 lower ones and then shorten the next ones so that we can get a lot of good leaf growth on this, so that we can strengthen this trunk and make it get wider. So I came down and removed this branch, removed this branch. I'm going to shorten that one to this length so we can force these buds to start growing. And I actually pruned it right above an outward facing branch. It's not that important that it's outward facing at this time because this branch is going to be slowly shortened and removed, but I just decided to keep it growing out. So I'm going to do the same with this one, find an outward facing bud. Maybe I'll even take it a little bit lower, except for, yeah, there's a good one right there. And let me get you closer and show you what I did here. So there's, it's kind of hard to see, but there's the tip of that new bud right here, or new branch, and you can see that it's green and healthy. And that's going to force these lower branches, these lower buds, to branch out. And then I can choose several of those, probably 3 of them, for the main scaffold branches. Now here we have this one. It's really hard to get this to focus, but there's live wood there. There's the bud that I pruned it to, so it's outward facing. And same with this one. So now we're just going to see how this turns out and what kind of growth we get from it. Let's go to the backyard and see my backyard tree. It has a little bit of a different growth pattern. Now it's very difficult to see, but here we have the tree that's in my backyard. It has absolutely no lower growth on it, and it's got a really good growth point there at the tip. It's only about 1.5 feet tall, so I've got to decide if I want this to have a taller trunk or be more of a bush shape. And after thinking about it for a while, I think what I want to do is tip this, just take the very, very tip off, right by that next bud. Hopefully you can see what I did. It's really hard to see this. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bud right there, and I tipped it at that. Now we're going to force it to have lower growth. And I think I would like this one to have a little more shrubby look to it and not have as tall of a trunk. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, looks like we've got some good new, it's green wood, so I think it should grow. We'll see what happens. as I've said, pistachios here are very experimental, and I may or may not get growth on it. It may or may not have completely survived the winter, and it may or may not survive the spring. But I love experimenting, so we'll see what happens. Now, one other thought I had about pistachio trees is you have to have a male and a female to get fruit. Now, I have no idea whether or not I have males or females, and no way of knowing that until they start producing fruit, in the next 7 years or so. So the other thing that I am leaving options open for with the type of pruning that I'm doing is to be able to graft them. Now, maybe I could go collect, figure out which of the USU trees are males and which are females, and come and graft the male and the female onto here. That'll be older fruiting wood. So we might be able to get fruit sooner than that. But my grafting skills are not great here in the state of Utah, so that may end up being another video with somebody who knows how to graft and see what we can do with that. So there are plenty of options available with these little pistachio trees, but the first obstacle we need to overcome is getting them through this spring. So thank you for coming with me and joining with me on this experiment. And I'd love to hear if you've grown pistachios in colder climates. We are here in northern Utah, and there are pistachio orchards, but there's not a lot of people who've grown them, so I don't have a lot of information on growing pistachios here. So what I'm hoping to do is develop some sort of knowledge base on how they perform and what pruning methods are the best here. So I've just done mine. If I lose my trees, then I've lost them, and we can probably start over with something new. Anyway, I hope you've really enjoyed this video. If you have enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.